What's up, kings and queens? It's Dan from Daft Previews, and I'm back for another comprehensive preview of all the player picks in this upcoming 8-game slate. Now, this video is going to be a little bit different to what you're used to. I've been out all day, haven't had a chance to research, and if I did research, film, and edit the way I normally would, I'll be up well past midnight. So in today's video, I'll be live streaming, previewing all the players identified with easy matchups. I'll be answering any questions that come through the live chat. I don't have any bets placed yet at the moment, but on this video, I'll be placing bets as I find them. I've got my trusty iPad here, got my sportsbook open, so we're ready to rock and roll. So one thing to keep in mind is that I'm not going to go through every single game on the upcoming slate. There's still quite a few markets that aren't available. And as always, all the data that I'm going to show you, it's all on props.cash. You know that I use it every single day. It will be on the video. And for all of my viewers, you do get 25% off if you sign up using the code DAFT25. So just give me a sec to start sharing my video, sharing my screen. If you do have any questions, just pop them into the live chat and I'll look to tackle those as they come up. So, all right, so we got props.cash. Don't want it to be too small for you. All right, so the very first game is the Rockets versus the Houston Celtics. Now, in terms of players with great matchups, there's only one in this game, and that's Fred VanVleet. And we're looking at his points prop. It's over 17.5. So the Celtics allow the fourth most points and the second most three-pointers made to point guards. So this is pretty much the first time I'm looking at all of these stats. So if it does take me a little bit longer, I apologize. But let's just have a quick look through. So Fred VanVleet, if we're talking about his points, he's covered in 6 of his last 10 games. Pretty good. He's averaging 19 points per game. So we like that. Recent form, if you want to break down his last 5, 18.6. So his last 3 have been quite strong, although he is up against the Boston Celtics, who the Bucks just made a mockery of. So chances are the Celtics probably wake on up and tighten up on the defensive end. Hey, B-More, 2BK, up early in New York. Tapping in with you. I appreciate that, my man. Let me know what time it is over there in New York. Over here in Sydney, it is 10 p.m. Fred VanVleet. But looking at head-to-head matchups against the Celtics, as you can see, hasn't fared very well. So he does have a good matchup on paper, but looking at how he's performed, the 8, 7, and 12, that doesn't give me any confidence whatsoever. So I won't be touching Fred, but he's the only one who has a good matchup, you could say, in this game. One prop that I'm already thinking about leaning here is Jason Tatum's PRA. So it's 39.5. And if you have a look at his last 10, he's averaging 40.2. I only pulled off 11 against the Bucks. So hoping that we see a bounce back game if this was something that I was going to play. As you can see, he's covered this line quite well. 51% of the season, averaging 40. Last year, he covered it at 60%. In head-to-head matchups, he's gone 1 from 2. So good chance of a bounce back from Jason Tatum. Let me know in the chat. Is that something that you're feeling? Hey, it's 6 a.m. Man, I appreciate you getting up so early for me. Lonnie Lyle, I see you, my boy. Hey, that's awesome. All right, so I apologize if I do get distracted. I am watching this chat and trying to share all this at the same time, but what can you do? We get on with it. So they're the only strong matchups and leans that I have at the moment in that game. Let's jump into the Washington Wizards versus the Atlanta Hawks game. Now, this one has a lot of players who have good matchups, obviously, given that both teams don't defend very well. So let's kick it off with the man in the thumbnail today. It's Trae Young. So PRA-wise, these are his stats against the Washington Wizards. His PRA is quite high. His line is quite high. He did hit it recently in their last matchup against the Wizards, although that's not what I'm looking at. So I'm checking out his assist line, over 10.5 assists. And the reason why is because over the last 15 games, the Wizards allow the 3rd most assists to point guards. You can see he's covered this in 6 of his last 10 games. He was quite poor against Indiana, finishing with only 6, so we might see a bounce back from Trae. In head-to-head matchups, he's only hit this twice out of 7 games, although in his early game earlier against them this year, 13 assists. One thing I do like about props.cash as well is, it gives you an indication of injuries as well. So that's pretty good. Both teams pretty much at full strength. So no reason why I can't see Trae. It's a really strong lead at the moment, to be honest. maybe you guys can give me some confidence in the chat. But Trae Young over 10.5 assists is one of the good players. Another one is for Tyus Jones, and we're looking at his rebounds plus assists. And the reason why is because the Hawks allow the third most rebounds and they allow a lot of assists. What is it? The seventh most assists to point guards over the last 15 games. As you can see, up against the Hawks, hasn't had much luck as of late. Looking at his last 10 games, once again, hasn't had much luck, covering in only 2 of 10. So when the graph is quite red like this, I tend to think, what are the sportsbooks thinking? They're predicting probably a strong game from Tyus Jones. But also, one thing that I always tell people is that even though I'm going through the data on which teams, players who have the best matchup, you've got to keep in mind that the sportsbook have access to the exact same information, right? So naturally, when a player does have a good matchup, their lines get lifted anyway. So I wouldn't be scared just because it's red and he hasn't hit it as of late. He's got a great matchup, so his chances are a lot higher. But if we just quickly want to have a look at just his rebounds and just his assists to see if maybe there's one that's faring a lot better than the other. There's his assists and there's his rebound. So rebound-wise, not looking good at all. Assist-wise, that's telling us that there's a chance there. So 6.5 assists for Tyus Jones might be something that you lean towards. If you do like your parlays, 5.5 assists, it's pretty decent, averaging 5.8 in his last 10. But let's not spend too much time on Tyus Jones, and let's get into some bigger players. DeJounte Murray is one that pops out on the screen. And we're looking at DeJounte over 4.5 rebounds. Now, DeJounte, why do we like that? It's because the Wizards allow the 4th most rebounds to shooting guards. Now, once upon a time, DeJounte Murray used to be a triple-double threat. That was back in his San Antonio days. I wait for the days where Trae Young gets injured so we can try to jump on DeJounte Murray triple-doubles. But I guess what I'm saying about that is he is a strong rebounder for his position. Hasn't needed to do much of that in Atlanta, but interesting to see his line at 4.5. It is quite juiced, I must say. So it's obvious that this line's probably going to move to 5.5. But even looking at the 5.5 line, pretty good data. On the 4.5, he's covered in 7 of his last 10 games, averaging 5.2 rebounds. In head-to-head matchups against the Washington Wizards, quite green here, 4 out of 7, averaging 5 rebounds per game. So if you can get that 4.5 at a good price, DeJounte Murray got a good matchup. He's got good history. He's got good recent form. So definitely one that you could be looking out for. Sticking on the Atlanta Hawks rebounds, Saddiq Bey. Now, he's hurt a lot of people's feelings because I know up against the Indiana Pacers, a lot of people were taking his rebounds plus assists, and he did fall short on. I did see that everywhere. But on Saddiq, the Wizards, they allow the 2nd most rebounds to small forwards. His rebounding form has been quite good. He's covered this in 7 of his last 10, averaging 7.5 rebounds. In head-to-head matchups against them, he's only covered in 3 of 8. But as you can see, those 3 games were all this year. So Saddiq Bey has had great rebound numbers against the Washington Wizards this season. So could be something juicy going on there. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. That's Saddiq. The next one, and I will not be touching this guy. It hurt my feelings a couple of days ago, but his points line, 24.5 for Kyle Kuzma. The Hawks allow the 4th most points to power forwards. Looking at his last 10, he's been pretty average. I think I backed him here against the Indiana Pacers. He only finished with 11 points. He shot like 2 for 12 or something. It was pretty awful. But I did back his over there in that game, so I refused to touch him again. But up against the Atlanta Hawks, he's got quite good form. Check that out. 4 out of 6 games against the Hawks, 38 in his most recent matchup against them, averaging 24.2 points per game. So I'm not touching Kyle Kuzma. I'm not a fan of his. But maybe you guys are. Sticking on the power forwards, though, Jalen Johnson. So a lot of people have been backing him recently. He has had a good matchup in a lot of his games. But unfortunately, the Pacers beat Atlanta by 20 points. So his plays were cooked. But we're looking at his PRAs in this one. And that's because the Wizards allow the most points, the 6th most rebounds, and the 9th most assists to power forwards. Looking at that, he's hitting 4 of his last 10, averaging 28.4. Jalen Johnson's definitely one of those no sweat bets. Basically, he's going to kill it or he's going to kill you. So if he has the right matchup, he has potential to explode. But yeah, it's a tricky one with these young players. A lot of potential, but hasn't been able to make it happen on a consistent basis. And you can see that in his form against the Wizards. So these 3 games here at the end were all this season. He had 21, pretty lackluster. Then he had 10, and then he exploded with 41. But as you can see, this graph here indicates what his line was in that game. So his line, points, rebounds, and assists would have been close to 20, and he just got over at 21. Then in this game, his line was at about 24.5, and he only finished on 10. But then his recent matchup, his line was what it was today, 29.5, exploded for 41. He does have a good matchup, but does he make it happen? I'm not too sure. Mark the Spark, you got a question for me. What's Kuz's assist? Seems Atlanta definitely allows more assists. Let's have a quick look here. So Kyle Kuzma, his assist line is 4.5. If I have a look at how Atlanta defending power forwards and their assists over the last 15 games real quick, they're actually one of the better teams. So they actually allow the 9th least assists to power forwards over the last 15 games. But as you can see, Kuzma fills up the stat sheet against the Atlanta Hawks. Over his last 10 it's not the worst in the world. 5 out of his last 10, but yeah, definitely not something I'm taking. But best of luck to you if you choose to pick him up. The last player in this game, 90% sure I'll take some sort of play on him, is Clint Capella. But we're looking at his rebounds in this one purely because the Wizards allow the most rebounds to centers. This 10.5 line, he's hit in 5 of his last 10 games. He's averaging 10.3 rebounds per game. The matchup against the Wizards, this year it's been excellent. Check that out. So in all 3 games this season, Clint Capella's gone over that 10.5 rebound mark. In 7 games against them, he's gone over in 4. So what I was thinking of, if I don't like the 10.5, I was going to play a Clint Capella double-double. Might be something that I'll look into after this, depending on what the odds are. But yeah, so that's a wrap on that game. Let's jump into the next one. The next game we have is the New York Knicks versus the Memphis Grizzlies. So at the moment, only the lines for the Knicks are out, so nothing on Memphis. There's one player who does have a good matchup in this, and that's Jalen Brunson. So we're looking at his rebounds plus assists up here against Memphis. And the Grizzlies, they allow the most rebounds and the 6th most assists to point guards. As you can see over his last 10 games, he's only hit this 3 times, this 11.5 line. But in head-to-head matchups against Memphis, he's gone for 15 and 14 rebounds and assists. But one thing to keep in mind, this was over a year ago. So we're talking October and November of 2022. So long time ago, if you're going to factor in form against the opponent. Recent form is not the best, but as I said, the books know Jalen Brunson has a good matchup here, so naturally they're going to elevate his lines. So I'm not going to be touching it, but up to you if you do. Lonnie Lyle, never pick up Kuz again. Absolutely. Rangers Nico, how are you, my friend? And Cameron Best. McBride been cooking off the bench. What's his points line? So I don't have access to his points line yet. A lot of those types of players, their lines don't come up too close to the game. But thanks for asking the question. Next one, we've got Warriors versus the Bucks. So quite a few players have a good matchup in this one. I want to start with the Greek freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. We're looking at his assist prop in this game. That's because the Warriors allow the 5th most assists to power forwards. So over his last 10 games, he's hit this 6 times. He's averaging 7.1 assists. The line is starting to get a little bit juiced, though, so we're not at 110 anymore. So people are really favoring that over. His head-to-head matchups, we only got 1 here, but this was in 2022, so he hasn't versed the Warriors in quite some time. And he only finished from 5. But the team's changed quite a lot since that point. You're really going to have to look at, I guess, his more recent form. In terms of matchups and who's out, so Draymond's day-to-day because he's reconditioning. I think I'm also curious to know who's Draymond going to hit next. I feel like he's going to get suspended one more time before this season is done. I wonder who's he going to hit. Chris Paul's still out. He's injured. Not many injuries for the Milwaukee Bucks. So they'll be relatively healthy in this one. Giannis over 6.5 assists. I always feel like that's too high for me, but you guys might think otherwise. But the next player, one of the most handsome men in the NBA, is Chris Middleton. So looking at his points line in this one, over 16.5 points for Chris Middleton. He's hit this in 6 of his last 10, averaging 17.4 points per game. His recent form, his last 5 haven't been great, but he played a lot of games in a short span. He's hasn't played many back-to-backs, and when he did play a back-to-back, his minutes were heavily reduced. You can see it here. There's a back-to-back and a blowout. Sorry, so that Boston game, not a back-to-back, but they absolutely blew them out, so they didn't have to do nothing. Chris Middleton in head-to-head matchups with the Warriors, 20 and 19 points. Obviously, different team now. He's got Dame Lillard with him. But yeah, he's got a strong matchup, strong form against that team. Can he do it tomorrow? I'm not too sure. The next one is Malik Beasley over 10.5 points. So the thing that sticks out to me is his form against the Warriors is very up and down, but he was probably on 2 different teams at this point. So I wouldn't take any of his form against the Warriors into consideration. He does have a good matchup. The Warriors are allowing the 3rd most points and the 2nd most 3-pointers made to shooting guards. Obviously, Malik Beasley gets a lot of his points from range. If he's left open, he could easily cover this 10.5. Looking at his last 10, he's covered this in 6 occasions, averaging 11.7 points per game. Something else that's interesting, especially for role players, I like to look at their minutes. So if you look here, you can see these minutes do go up and down. Obviously, the more minutes he plays, the more likely he is to hit. So most of the time, if he's playing more than 20 to 25 minutes, usually that's a cash for him. But also, his field goal attempts can be a bit up and down as well. So he's had some atrocious games against the Knicks and the Houston Rockets as well. So he played in this game against the Knicks and scored nothing. And Houston, he had a terrible game. One thing I always like to do is just check to see how do those teams defend those positions, to see was it positionally a tough matchup or did he just have a poor game. So Houston's probably around middle of the pack when it comes to defending shooting guards, and the New York Knicks allow the 3rd least points to shooting guards over the last 15 games. So you can probably forgive him for doing nothing against New York. Against Houston, he could have done better, but looking at his field goal attempts, it looks like he only attempted 1 shot that he made, but he only played 16 minutes. Okay, so Malik Beasley, it's not such a bad play, if I'm going to be honest with you. I'll think about it. Might jump on it close to the game. We'll see. Another one is Andrew Wiggins. So Andrew Wiggins just recently promoted to the starting lineup. I think that was his first game starting for a very long time up against the Chicago Bulls. They scored 140 points today, which is pretty crazy, the Warriors. But anyway, more on Wiggins. We're not looking at his points. We're not looking at his rebounds. He's got a great matchup on the assist front. So his line's 2.5. The Bucks allow the 4th most assists to small forwards. Against the Bulls, Andrew Wiggins managed to collect 8 assists. Now, I've been out all day. I don't know what happened in this game. I was just checking the scores whilst I was out. So if somebody can let me know in the chat, how the hell does this man pull off 8 assists in a game? It's beyond me. It doesn't make any sense. And I apologize. This is all live. So getting shortness of breath, SOB. So I've got to stay hydrated. So I apologize. Last one in this game, though, it is for Kevon Looney. And if his line stays at this, might be worth taking. So his line is 5.5. He's hit 5.5 in 5 of his last 10 games, averaging 6.2 points. In his matchups against the Bucks, he's scored 5 and 7. So the only reason I bring this up is that the Bucks allow the 3rd most points to centers. That's one thing. But the other thing which I find quite interesting, 5.5 is a great line because he just has to make 3 shots. He might have to make a free throw or 2, but even though he's found himself on 5 points, which is not what you want, realistically it's 3 buckets. Now, Kevon Looney, can he get 3 buckets? He attempts 3 shots per game, so probably not. But yeah, it's quite a low line, but he hits it quite well. So, and he's got a good matchup today. So one for you guys who like to take lines like that. Before I jump into the next game, let's just answer a few questions. Jimmy Williams. Keegan Murray, how do you feel about him? You think he'll be the next franchise player? No, I don't think he'll be a franchise player. I think he could be a certified 2 or 3, probably a 3, probably a 3rd best player on the team. I think he can play his role quite well. He's streaky. He's a great shooter. He does have length, but Defensively, he's a bit suspect. Rebounding, he could be a little bit better. But the fact that he can shoot so well for his size and in the team that he is in, I think he can really shine there. He's in a really good system at the moment with Sabonis, Fox, really streaky. But until he can put it all together, especially on the road, he tends to struggle. I think it was against Charlotte. That was a road game, and he played quite well. But prior to that, all of his road games, they haven't been great. Whereas his home games, a lot of them have been terrific. But look, he's still young. He can turn it around. But I don't think he'll be the next franchise player. I wouldn't build a team around Keegan Murray. He doesn't create his own shot. He doesn't rebound very well. Doesn't defend very well. But he is a great shooter, and he's still young, so he could change things around. But right now, I say no. Not a franchise player, in my opinion. What else is there? Orlando versus OKC. So every single time OKC plays, I tend to lick my chops. I get a little bit excited about that because, they've got a lot of players in their team where you can kind of predict what they're going to do. But unfortunately, they're up against the Orlando Magic, who are a great defensive team. The Magic lines aren't out yet. It's only Banchero. And OKC players, none of them have an easy matchup in this game. So I think it really depends. The way I would bet that game is, firstly, I'd want to understand whether I think this game is going to go over or under. If they play it the Thunder's way, points could go over. But if they play at the pace that the Magic want to play, it could be quite slow, limiting the potential stats for a lot of these players. The line's at 232. I can see it on RotoWire. The spread's at 11 for OKC. So, yeah, look, 232 points is quite a lot. But, yeah, none of these players have a great matchup, so it honestly does require some further digging. I'll quickly have a quick flick through. Let's have a look at SGA. So SGA hits 30 points probably more often than anybody except for, maybe Luka and Joel Embiid. But his line's at 32.5, and it usually does sit there. And he does hover around that mark quite often. In head-to-head matchups, though, he scored 34 and 33. So that isn't so bad. For SGA, who else is there? So we've got Chet over his last 10. He's line 17.5 once again. Scored 19 points in 20 minutes against the Portland Trailblazers. So who's his matchup going to be? His matchup most likely will be Goga Pataze. So you could say that he probably has an advantage there, but is he going to get the chance? Is he going to get the opportunities? Jalen Williams, I know he's done well on the assist side of things lately. Would have cleared it easy if that Portland game wasn't such a blowout. But if his line stays at 4.5, I think we could see some Jalen Williams action there. One thing to be wary of is this stat here. The Orlando Magic allow the least assists in the league at the moment. So is that going to be enough to stop us from taking him? Probably not, but we'll see. His last two matchups, 4 assists in his last matchup, no assists in the first matchup. But those were last season, so he's really developed his game this year. He's taken a leap. And there's Josh Giddey as well, the man from down under. What was that record that he got? First triple-double, shooting 100% from the field, playing less than 25 minutes. I don't know. These stats that these people make up these days and records, they're crazy. But Josh Giddey, starting to find some form. Rebounds are going up. Assists are going up. His points aren't going up, but I guess they don't have to. But the most important thing are his minutes. His minutes aren't going up. Even though the Portland one was a blowout, he's still only playing about 25 minutes a game. So, yeah, maybe they're keeping him fresh for the playoffs. Who knows? There might be a push happening. But let's jump into the next one. The Pelicans versus the Dallas Mavericks. We'll go through each player here because I missed this one in my initial look to see who's got a good matchup or not. But from what I already know, Dallas get absolutely murdered by centers. So Jonas Valanciunas points and his rebounds, probably something good to look at. Points-wise, we like this. That's some good recent form. He's hit 6 out of his last 10, but he's hit it in 4 straight, 12.5 points. He's on a back-to-back today, so interested to see how many minutes he normally plays on a back-to-back. Against the Mavericks, he's hit it in 4 of his last 6. I think I bet on this game, actually, in November for him to have a big one. I remember losing on Valanciunas against the Mavs. Most likely that one. Rebound-wise, yeah, his rebound sucked in that game too. Over his last 10. Yeah, look a bit up and down. 9.5 is pretty big. Even though he is averaging 9.5 rebounds this year, you're asking for him to be pretty much better than his average. So I guess the line's not completely ridiculous. Assists, for a while there, his assist was a great play, but I guess ever since the Pelicans are back at full strength, he hasn't had to do any of that. There's no more handoffs. Kyrie Irving, my man. So if you didn't know, Kyrie is one of my favorite players. He's probably a little bit weird, but one of my favorite players, full stop. His points line is 32.5 points. So, I can't believe it. I watch every game that he plays, watch him closely. This 32.5 points, he's only hit this in 5 of 23 games this year. But I know what people are going to say. Yeah, but Luka's not playing. I was like, I get that Luka's not playing. So just let me show you this. So props.cash, you can find any of these people who are injured or game time decisions. Click one button, and then you can see all the players' stats when that person's not in. So this is Kyrie's last 10 games without Luka Doncic. So he's only hit this twice. He averages 27 points per game without Luka Doncic in the lineup. So his last 3 games have been excellent, though. 44 against the Knicks. That was pretty wild, I must admit. But personally, I wouldn't touch him. He's my favorite player, but I wouldn't bet on him right now because this line is ridiculously high, especially having a look at this. Over his last 46 games without Luka Doncic, he's only hit this 10 times. So it's about 22% probability, you could say, that he covers this line. But maybe he sees an uplift in other places. Rebounds without Luka, no strong indicators that he'll make that happen. Assists, no strong indicator there either. So I think overall, taking that PRA under might be the best shot here. But yeah, look, I think with players like Kyrie, better to watch, not to bet on, because he's damn skillful. So much skill, but you just can't rely on him to be consistent when it comes to putting out stats. Sometimes it just takes one great defender, or if his head's not in it, anything could happen. So yeah, it's a no-go for Kyrie. CJ McCollum, let's get through these real quick. So points-wise, 18.5. 4 of his last he's hit. Up against the Mavs, he has hit in 2 of his last 3. So that's pretty promising for CJ. I think the difficult thing here, looking at the Pelicans, though, it's like they're back at full strength. So they have 3 players who you can assume is going to score most of their points. But Valanciunas is capable of 15 and 20 points. Trey Murphy off the bench, he's capable of a big game. So, it's a tough one to take any of their points props. Let's have a look at Zion. So Zion scored 30 points against the Nuggets today. So I was actually at a bar for lunch. I was out there for about 3-4 hours. And we were crushing some wings, onion rings, ribs, like fries, sweet potato fries. Like we just went ham. But they had the Pelicans versus the Nuggets on there, and we were watching it the whole time. And it didn't feel like Zion scored 30 points. It looked like he was kind of just laboring up and down the court. But quite surprised to see him finish on 30. But anyway, he's covered this 21.5 point line in 5 of these last 10 games, averaging 20.9. He's versed the Dallas Mavericks twice, and he hasn't covered this line, which is crazy because most of the time Dallas actually allow a lot of points to power forwards. Let me just have a quick check. Over the last 15 games, yeah, I'm right. Over the last 15 games, the Dallas Mavericks allow the 3rd most points to power forwards. But interesting. Zion hasn't had much success. So, look, I'm not going to touch any Pelicans players. This one I might, though. Tim Hardaway Jr. So, his line's at 20.5 points at the moment, and he's probably going to still come off the bench in this game. No, I think he's starting at 2 guard. So, Tim Hardaway Jr., over his last 10 games, he's only covered this twice. This season, he's only covered it from 10 of 36 games. Obviously, Luka's not in, so let's do the filter without Luka because it's a completely different game. So without Luka, he's covered it this season 2 out of 4 games. That's not too bad. The Portland one was a blowout. Rockets, obviously a great defensive team when it comes to shooting guards. The rebounds and assists. So look at that. His assist prop could be a good one. 2.5 assists for Tim Hardaway. He's averaging 2.8 without Luka, averaging 3 this year when Luka doesn't play. So that could be a good one there. Tim Hardaway could be a beneficiary of no Luka Doncic. Brandon Ingram, look at his points, last 10. Look at that. He's gone under in 6 straight games now. He did make the video 2 nights ago against the Warriors because the Warriors give up a lot of points to 2 guards, but he still didn't make it happen there. And I think this just comes down to the Pelicans being stacked. They're fully healthy. Brandon Ingram isn't required to do all the heavy lifting anymore. I'm just having a look to see what's happening here. Yeah, you can see it here. So it's not like he's shooting poorly. He's shooting at 48% of his last 10 games. The challenge is here. So his shot attempts have reduced heavily. So the most shots he's taken in a game over his last 6 games is 12. So he just doesn't have the activity at the moment. And one thing I like to do on props.cash is I like to filter with this. So if I filter this down to all the games where Brandon Ingram has shot less than 12 times, and I do it over the last 2 years, check that out. So Brandon Ingram's taken 12 shots or less 16 times since the start of last year, and he has never covered this line. Not at all. Part of the issue is he's done that in 6 consecutive games now, taking 12 shots or less. So I don't know what these sports books are thinking, setting his line at 12.5, if this is the type of activity we're going to get. So yeah, he's averaging 14 points per game when he shoots less than 12 shots. Interesting. One thing off VI though, I just want to check his assists, because if he's not scoring, he's got to be doing something else, right? His assist line's at 5.5. That's pretty much on par with what it's been most of the season. He seems to hit this every second game if you believe in trends, but he's hit this in 5 of 10, averaging 5.6. So what are the chances are he goes under in assists again tomorrow because it's a trend, and he goes under in points because he doesn't shoot? Yeah, I'm not too sure. Not like what I'm seeing for Brandon Ingrams and Herb Jones. I don't think anyone bets on him anyway. Let's jump into the Chicago Bulls and Spurs. So I can only see the Zach LaVine and Devin Vassell lines at the moment. But Zach LaVine does have a good matchup, so let's have a look at him. So the Spurs, they allow the 3rd most rebounds and the 5th most assists over their last 15 games. So Zach LaVine, he's covered. Let's go to do both, and then I'll break them down. Rebounds and assists. He's covered this in 4 of his last 10 games. But I think one thing that's important to note, he just came back from injury against Charlotte. So he's only played 4 games. So I think what's fair is we filter it down to his last 5. So these are his rebounds and assists. His last 2, he's gone off. So if we look at it, what's happening here, you can see his last 2 games, he's been rebounding like a beast. Last 2 games, 3 games, he's gone over in assists. So he does have a good matchup for both rebounds and assists. So rebounds and assists could be the way here, or even just assists. I have a feeling he could just go off on one of these, really, because if he's not scoring, he's got to be doing something. But he's actually been scoring in his last 2. This man's just been filling up the stat sheet. So look, let me know in the comment section. You going to be taking Zach LaVine today based off what you see? It does have my interest, not gonna lie. We know the Spurs are a good matchup for everyone. So if the stats are there to be had, maybe Zach LaVine for, I wonder how much this plays if we take it for 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. I think that could be some good value there. Look, what I'll do is I'll obviously be putting all my bets in the Discord once I finally decide on them. Probably Zach LaVine assists is what I'm leading at the moment, but that's at 120. But yeah, all my final players, I'll put them in the Discord anyway. I think a lot of you guys who are tuning in are from there, so we'll see where I land. And then the last game, we're looking at the Lakers versus the Utah Jazz. Surprised to see, I was surprised that not many Lakers make this list in terms of good matchups. But the first one is Colin Sexton. We're looking at his assist line here, over 3.5. The Lakers allow the most assists to shooting guards over the last 15 games. The problem that I have with this Utah Jazz team, it's similar to the Indiana Pacers right now, is they'll play like 8 or 9 players 20 minutes a game. Like it's weird. It's like everybody's having a turn. So you only have a limited amount of minutes to get your work done. You can see it here with Colin Sexton. He's the starting shooting guard on this team. But over his last 5 games, he's only averaging 21 minutes. So you've got to be productive with your time at the moment. But I guess the line represents that. 3.5, but the odds for that are minus 135. So, I'm not too sure. But he does have a good matchup. So we shall see. Another player who probably plays 20 minutes per game is who's this one? Simone Fontecchio. Now, this guy caught my attention during the FIBA World Cup. He's got a nice stroke on him. In the NBA now, getting some opportunities. I think he's starting. He's a starting small forward for them. But hit the Lakers. They do allow the 5th most points to small forwards. Fontecchio only hit 1 of his last 5. He's hit in 4 of his last 10. So I think you just got to find the right matchup for him. I wouldn't just play him just on this line. He's a player that's going to absolutely clear it. So for someone like him, I'd probably take him for 10 points if I was going to bet on him. Because if we have a look at his season, he doesn't often finish on 9. He's usually well under this line, or it looks like he's getting 10. So that's an interesting one. Next one, this is one that I'm probably going to take, and it's Austin Reeves. Looking at his assist prop, so the Jazz allow the 4th most assists to point guards. Austin Reeves has been starting as the point guard for the Lakers for 3 or 4 games now, maybe more, maybe 5. But just looking at his recent form here, you can see that his assist numbers are just off the charts. 9 against the Pelicans, 8 against the Heat, 12 against the Grizzlies, 2 against the Clippers, and they got blown out in that game, 7 against the Raptors, and then 6 against the Suns. And they got towed up in that game too. So I think Austin Reeves is starting at point guard. The Utah Jazz allow a lot of assists. They're one of the worst teams in the league in that department. And they also allow the 4th most assists to point guards. So Austin Reeves, that's definitely one that I'm going to be playing. And I'm pretty comfortable taking that because I feel like there's going to be a lot of points because the Lakers don't play much defense. Utah will do what they can to keep competitive. I don't think we see a blowout on this one. In terms of how they defend AD, I know how to look at that. AD, so when I looked at the positional matchup, he didn't have a strong advantage or disadvantage when it comes against the Jazz. The Jazz are about in the middle of the pack when it comes to defending centers. But AD, his line's at 27.5. He's hit that in 5 of his last 10. But the games where he did go off, the Raptors, one of the worst teams at defending centers. Memphis, they're one of the worst teams at defending centers as well. The Miami Heat, I don't remember if Bam was playing in this game, but Miami actually are pretty good at defending centers. Minnesota Timberwolves, believe it or not, given they've got Gobert, Cat, whatever, Minnesota Timberwolves are not good at defending centers either. Their centers are just good at defending other players in help defense. And then the Boston Celtics, and the Celtics, again, they're not one of the better defensive teams either. So, yeah, not too confident on Anthony Davis in this one. Having a look at his rebounds. His rebounds, they tend to come when he has a big scoring game. Miami, Minnesota, Boston. They're the big scoring games that he did have as well. And the Raptors. So I think maybe an under on his PRA could be value. Actually, probably not his PRA because his assists. But again, his assists came in those same games. It was Boston, Minnesota, Miami, Memphis, Toronto. So if we look at his PRA, yeah, you can see that he does a lot or he does fucking nothing. So Anthony Davis, PRA, I'd be interested to possibly take that for tomorrow. Take his under, but just the lean for now. Who else is there? LeBron James, the king. He's 39 years old now. Unbelievable. So if we look at how the Jazz go against power forwards, real quick, they're mid as well. Middle in terms of points. They actually allow quite a bit of rebounds, but not the easiest matchup in the world. And in assists, they're middle as well. So let's check Bron's recent form out. In his last 10, he's only covered his 26.5 point line in 3 of those games. 3 out of 10 games. Mr. James, in head-to-head matchups, 2 of his last 4. Let's check his rebounds. Anything jumping out? Assist line, that 8.5 is high. But fair enough, he's been killing it, averaging 8.5 assists in his last 10. And look, LeBron is the type of player that if he can get his teammates rolling and he doesn't have to score, he's not going to. He's not going to put his will on a game. He's not that type of guy. He's not built like that. So there is, I think he goes under his PRA, but I think probably the easiest one to take him in the under is points because LeBron's a stat hunting machine. And if he's not scoring, he'll collect stats other ways. And then he'll always chase points towards the end of a game, even if it may mean nothing, just to get those stats up as well. So I've noticed that. I've known that for years. But yeah, LeBron unders in points, probably something that's a lean for me at the moment because I don't think they're going to need LeBron to score more than 26.5 points to beat this Jazz team. Lauri Markkanen, he's actually been, it feels like he's been quiet, but it's not that he's been quiet. It's probably that he's been a bit inconsistent. So I haven't really bet on him that often. As you can see, hard for him to string together really strong performing games. So his points line in 5 of 10. Rebounds, his last 4 have been excellent. Rebounds against the Lakers doesn't give me the same level of confidence, but his rebounds lately have been good. Assists, he doesn't pass the rock that much. And let me have a look at Austin Reeves one more time. Let me quickly scan this chat to see what I'm missing. The Bish NBA blowouts are making it tougher than usual and trying to bet on it. Absolutely. These blowouts are tough. Shadow Stefan, I took quickly assist versus Jazz and he finished on 0. Sometimes the data does not mean anything. No, you're exactly right. The data is only a portion of why you should be placing a bet. There's data, there's matchup, there's scheduling, there's travel, there's home versus away, there's night versus afternoon games. There's rivalries between players. You've got to check the media sometimes to talk about what is happening. Sometimes the media can give you insight as to what's going on there. There's so much shit that you can really look at before making a play. So I agree. The data is not everything, but the good thing is I've got all the data here. And to answer your question, Luke Maddock, this is props.cash. Props.cash, it's got all the data for all the US sports. And I've got a 25% discount. So it's Daft 25 for all of my viewers. If you sign up using that code, you get 25% off. So thank you, Luke. Great question. What was I doing? Checking Austin Reeves, because we might be able to make a value play out of this one. So I know that I like his assists. I'm going to build this for me right now. Just let me get my sportsbook up and open. Value play on Austin Reeves, because I know that I like his assists already. I already know that the first leg that I'm going to make for Austin Reeves is going to be for him to get 7 assists. All right, so him to get 7 assists is not even available. So my book doesn't even, Bet365 doesn't even have Austin Reeves props just yet. So one for me to watch in the morning. But Reeves assists, definitely one that I'll be taking. Rebounds, oh no, that's tough. And points. What are we looking at for points? Since he's been the point guard, he's gone under in 3 or 5. Okay. Might be the big assist game for Austin Reeves, and we take his under in points. That's what I'm leaning towards at the moment. But I definitely will be taking his over in assists. That's for sure. Jeff 18, can the Lakers make the playoffs? Seems like free money. Look, if I'm going to be honest with you, Jeff, I don't even know, because I don't even check the standings. And the reason why I don't check the standings is because I'm obsessed with all the player data and the props and all that type of shit. I don't even know where they're sitting right now. Where are the Lakers sitting? I know that they lose games that they shouldn't. I know they won the in-season tournament. That means nothing. Let me have a quick look at the table, see what's cracking. All right, so they're sitting 11th. They're 19 and 20. Can the Lakers make the playoffs? Of course they can. I reckon they can make the playoffs. They'll do what they normally do. They'll be shit all year. And then when they need to turn it on, I think they will. But I also think they'll probably make some trades before the deadline. It's a typical LeBron James-led team. They'll make some trades before the deadline. Once the trades are done, everyone will be talking about how great they are. They'll probably make a strong run towards the end of the year, and they'll probably get bounced in the first round. That's my prediction on the Lakers. But I'm also not a LeBron fan, so I apologize if anybody is. Whilst I'm looking at the table, let me see what else is happening out there on the table. Looking at the East, we've got the Celtics first, Bucks, 76ers, Pacers. The Pacers are 4th in the East. Are you kidding me? The Pacers, Cavs, Knicks, Heat, Magic, Bulls, and Nets. So Atlanta, they're disappointing. They're 11th. The Raptors could make a late run, but all the other teams in the East, Hornets, Wizards, Pistons, no chance whatsoever. And then in the West, the Timberwolves are still number 1. The Thunder are right behind them, and so are the Nuggets. The Clippers are at 4, Kings at 5. The Mavs are at 6. Pels at 7, Suns at 8. That's disappointing. And the Rockets are at 9, so they're starting to slide. The Jazz have a better record than the LA Lakers and the Golden State Warriors. Are you kidding me? This is fried. The NBA is absolutely cooked. But look, those are all my props. I can't be asked on a recap, to be honest. 40 minutes. I honestly thought this would probably go for 20 to 30 minutes because I'm optimistic like that, but that didn't happen. But quick recap on yesterday: 0 for 2, bets and cash. Freaking pissed me off. Jabari, I pretty much picked the right players, wrong prop. Jabari Smith didn't hit his 3-pointers, but he went well over his points line. I only took his 3-pointers because the stupid data told me that the Pistons don't defend the 3-point line, but I was foolish and I got burnt. And the other one was Zubac. I took his over points and rebounds. The data told me that the rebounds are the best prop because the Memphis Grizzlies allow so many rebounds. I took the points prop as well because he's performed well, and the points is what let me down. He covered his rebound line, but his points shit the bed. So 0 for 2 in that one. So far, though, before I get to mine, what do we have? So we know we're going to go Austin Reeves. I like Austin Reeves. Also like Zach LaVine for his assists. I got a feeling about that one. Who else was there? There's got to be something in the Wizards-Hawks game. And it's not Kyle Kuzma, I'll tell you that. Oh, Clint Capella. Something to do with his rebounds or a double-double. So probably the three that I like the most. And Trae Young assists. I could do a same-game multi, even just Clint Capella for 10 points and Trae Young for 10 assists. So that's something that I'm leaning for at the moment. But for those of you in the Discord, you guys will see it there. Shadow Stefan, do you think Trae Young bounces back after the stinker yesterday? I think he does. So one thing I like to do in props.cash is use this basically to see what their behavior is like after a poor game. So you can see he just doesn't play well against Indiana by the looks of it. His last 2 games against the Pacers only scored 13 points. But after his last 13-point outing, what did he do? 31 points, 4 rebounds, and 9 assists. So yeah, there's definitely a bounce back factor to Trae Young. He's up against the Washington Wizards, who, they let teams dance all over them. He did light them up with 40 points earlier this season. So yeah, look, I think Trae Young definitely has a better game. Does he? I'm not saying he definitely covers his lines, but I am confident in saying he does have a better game. So if you wanted to play it safe and maybe take him for 20 points and 10 assists, perhaps might be a good play. I don't know what the odds would be on that one, but yeah, I do think he bounces back. But look, I'm going to wrap this one up because I am getting tired as hell. I'm not going to lie. It is late. But look, I want to say thank you to everyone who's joined the live stream. It's obviously gotten a lot more attention than I thought it would, but also this channel's grown a lot since I used to do these live streams. So thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Thank you to everyone who's put a comment in, everyone who likes, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know in the comment section if this is something you'd like me to do more often. Could be something that I do once a week. If you want to get interactive, similar date, we can do it on a Friday, Saturday, when you got more time and maybe when the time zones align a little bit better. But you know what time it is. It's time for that outro, baby. And if you did question it, yes, I wrote this, I rapped this, and I don't rap at all. I've got no skills in music. I did it as a joke, but you guys seem to love it, so here it is. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Sub to the channel cause your boy's getting busy. Coming to your line from the west side of Sydney. We've got the free picks and the juice on the daily. It's all free, you don't even have to pay me.